based in Budapest with Derdezom. And before we start, I would like to check if you can hear me well. Could you please write something in the chat box below in your right-hand bottom corner if you can hear me well? Yes, hello, anything. Good. Okay, I can see people hear us clear. Wonderful. Thank you very much. So I welcome you to this webinar that we organized together with Eurochild, where we are going to talk about children's participation in public decision-making. Before I give the floor to our speakers, whom you can already see next to me, here, we would like to ask you to answer a few polls about your experience with joining this webinar or how you learned about it. So you will see a few polls on the screen right now. Please take a few minutes to answer them. And also, if you haven't introduced yourself yet in the chat box, please go ahead and write a couple of words about where you come from, which organization, which part of the world. So I see it was clear for you to join. I know that some people are still experiencing problems and trying to join us now. I know the platform has been updated over the summer, and people need to install it again. So we think that more people will be joining us a bit later. Okay, so it was easy. Oh, I can see for the majority it's the first webinar. Good, I hope you enjoyed this experience. Okay. Good. Maybe half a minute more and then we will close the polls. Okay. And now I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, Mieke Schuurman, who is the Senior Policy and Advocacy Coordinator for Children's Rights and Child Participation for Eurochild.
Thank you very much, Evgenia, for introducing me, and welcome everyone to this webinar. We're very pleased to have you all here and to read in the chat box already a little bit about your background. So please, if you have joined later, share the organization you're from or the country you're from and why you're interested in this topic and this seminar. Yes, as Evgenia said, I'm a Senior Policy and Advocacy Coordinator for Children's Rights and Child Participation at Eurochild, and I've been responsible for Eurochild's child participation strategy and our child protection policy, and I'm also, for a part, responsible for the conference we're organizing on children's participation in public decision-making. Next to me, you see Anne Crowley, who is a policy and research consultant and honorary research associate with Cardiff University in Wales, where she also completed her PhD on the impact of children's participation in policy making. And most recently, she has been involved with Eurochild in writing a background report on children's participation and public decision making, including also a lot of examples. She's going to talk about this later on. I also would like to have a special welcome for Society Our Children Opatja, because Thea from Society Our Children Opatja is present in the webinar. She's the host of our conference in Croatia, end of October. So hi Thea, and yeah, also very welcome to everyone in the webinar. I just would like to briefly tell you what we're going to do the next hour. So please see the agenda. We expect to share the concept of children's participation in public decision making, and we will be introducing a report that we drafted on this. So Anne Crowley will do this. We will tell more about the conference that we're organizing at the end of October in Opatja, and we will give you some teasers of the conference workshops that we will have there. And there is plenty of time also for your questions and for discussion about the issues and for sharing your experiences. So I hope this is all clear. If there's anything not clear while I'm speaking or while Anne is speaking, please type your comments in the chat box. And also, when you have questions, please already type them while we're speaking, and we can then, when there's question and answer time, come back to them. Okay, so I briefly would like to introduce Eurochild first to you. Eurochild is a network of organizations advocating for children's rights and well-being at the heart of policy making. And Eurochild's vision is a society where children grow up happy, healthy, confident, and respected as individuals in their own rights. I don't know how many of you already have heard of Eurochild before, so you see the poll and you already start answering, I see. If you have heard of Eurochild before or not, please answer the poll and we'll look at it in a minute. In the meantime, I continue. We have 171 members in Eurochild. Many of them are NGO organizations, but also public authorities and also academic experts are members of Eurochild. So we have members in 34 countries across Europe. The key areas of work we focus on are, the first one is combating child poverty and social exclusion. The second one is to end institutional care for all children in Europe. We have an Opening Doors campaign for that. And the third one is to see more recognition and understanding of children's rights in the political discourse. And child participation is an overarching theme in all of the work that we're doing. So child participation is a very important part of all the work that we do. And we involve children in our advocacy work, in our strategic planning, and in our events organization. I'm just looking at the results of the poll now, and I see that an overall majority have heard of Eurochild before, so we're very happy to see that. A few of you haven't heard of us before, so I hope that this has given you a little bit of information. You can also go to our website, which you see here on the slide, to see all the work that we are doing within Eurochild. So we'd like to move on to tell you a little bit about the conference before we go also to the background report. So from 29th until 31st of October, we will organize together with Society Our Children in Opatja our biannual conference in Croatia. This conference is, the patron of this conference is actually the president of Croatia, Ms. Kolinda Grabar-Kitarovic. I'm not sure if I pronounce her name correctly, and we have a lot of high-level speakers already confirmed to participate. We will have a royalty. We have the Princess of the Netherlands, Princess Laurentien, who has her own foundation to support children to participate in decision-making processes. We also have nominees for the Kids Peace Prize, so we have children as speakers. We have the children's mayor from Opatja, because Opatja is a child-friendly city. The children's ombudsman, who's going to be the chair of the European Network of Children's Ombudspeople, will be speaking as well. She comes from France. So we have many interesting speakers, but it's not a usual conference where you just sit and listen to speeches the whole time. We will have many study visits. So we will have study visits in and around Opatja. We will have over 13 workshops where people can go and participate and learn about the good practices and experiences of where children have been engaged in public decision-making processes. And we will have a human library. So everyone who is registering for the conference could indicate if they would be interested to be a book in the human library, which means that you are able to tell in small groups about your work experiences or about your personal experiences in relation to the theme of the conference. And another important part of the conference is that 1/3 of the participants will be children, so they will be under 18 years old. And I can already tell you that we have, we can have maximum of 300 participants, and we already have hundreds of children registered for the conference. So we have already 26 delegations from, I think, about 20 or 30 countries from across Europe who will participate in the conference. So the children's delegations, it's no longer open to register, but for adults, we still have space to register. I'm just looking at the poll that was that you see also in your screen. So have you already registered for the conference? And I see that some of you already have, 25%. Some of you still plan to do, like almost 40%. And no, I can't go. So I'm very sorry you can't go, but I hope that you at least get some inspiration and some background about the conference by listening to this webinar. So yeah, really great that many of you are planning to go. So I would just like to show now a little video, which is introducing the conference. We will mute the microphone now, and you can listen to it now and watch it. You can browse, go to browse too if there's a problem. Okay. Yes. I hope you enjoyed the video. The video was made, as you could see, with young people, and they are the Young People's Advisory Group that we set up, and that helps us to organize the conference. They have a big role in in planning the program and making it as interactive as possible. So there will be lots of opportunities for participants to share their experience, not only at workshops and during the sessions, but also outside these sessions. And it's really great to work with this group of young people from across Europe. I would like to open the floor to you if you have any questions on the conference itself. Can't see the video. I see someone.
No, that's
oh, okay. Okay.
Questions at the moment, so maybe we can come back to them.
Okay, so I don't see any questions in the chat room at the moment. If you have questions later on, we can come back to them later. Because I would like to ask Anne now to start talking about the background report that we prepared, or that she prepared together with Kat Larkins. Kat Larkins, you saw in the video. She is working for the University of Central Lancashire in the UK. And Kat wrote the report with some support of some other experts in the UK, and Anne is going to present that to you. Just one other thing is that Kat Larkins and Anne will both be, and Crowley will both be at the conference as well. And Kat Larkins will be moderating the opening and closing session. So Anne, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mieke. Hopefully everyone can hear me now. I was going to say, I work with Kath on this report, and I've just seen the video, which I hadn't seen before, and to see Kath in front of that beautiful blue sea, it was a lovely picture, a really nice picture, and shows how beautiful the location for the conference will be. And I hope, by what I say, adding to what Mieke said, you'll hear all the exciting things and interesting ideas and discussions that we will be having at the conference. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about this background report, which we did a review of practice in Europe with the help of a survey of Eurochild members and a review of the literature, the sort of published academic literature, to see, what was the state of play. Very much focused on participation in public decision making rather than the broader concept of participation, and I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. So I'm going to just say a little bit about what is children's participation in public decision making and why is it important. A little flavour of what we found in relation to policy and practice in Europe. I guess you won't be surprised to hear that there's some really good practice around, and the background report includes some examples where you can go and get more information as well. And as Mieke said, we'll have some teasers later in this presentation where you can learn, see some visuals of some of the projects and practices that we found. But we also found, there's a long way to go. We've got more progress to make, and I don't think we should be too sort of punish ourselves too much for that, because it's a journey. We're all on a journey. Some started from different bases, and we're all trying to improve our practice and to realise, children's rights to be heard and to influence and shape public policy all over Europe. So come on board, ready? I'm going to say a little bit about the lessons learned, what people are saying really about what works, both in terms of making sure participation is inclusive, that it's actually involving children from all walks of life, all backgrounds, minority groups, socioeconomic differences, ethnic minorities, etc., disability, etc., etc. What have we learnt about how to facilitate participation in an inclusive way, and also what have we learnt about having an impact, actually influencing policy? There's a lot of activity in my country, and I'm sure some of your countries too, a lot more activity than there used to be in terms of children being able to have a voice their opinions and express their views. But we've still got more to go in terms of making sure those views are heard, listened to, and taken seriously. Not to say that everything children says should, be acted upon immediately, but children do need to get some feedback and to understand how their views have been heard, listened to, and taken into account. And then I'm going to end with a couple of slides about what comes next, really. What should we be focusing on in terms of trying to improve and take forward our practice and policies so that more and more children can participate in a realistic and meaningful way. Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. There we go. Okay, so what is children's participation in public decision making? It really takes us back to Article 12 of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which I'm sure most of you will be familiar with. It's about children's right to express a view. All children have a right, according to Article 12, to express a view and or an idea, etc., etc. But they also have a right for those views and ideas to be taken into account, and to be listened to and taken into account. So an academic in Northern Ireland, some of you may have come across, Laura Lundy, talks about this concept of voice and space, but also audience and influence. So she's really saying Article 12 is about children having a voice and a space to express their views, but it's also about them having an audience, people to listen to them and influence. I think in terms of public decision making, what we mean by that really is policies and laws and services and budgets. All those kind of sort of high up things in some ways, although we talk of it at all levels of government, not just at national level, also local level. But children have a right to, have a view and express those views and be heard in relation as individuals, but also as a group of young people. So whether it's a group in a school, in a community, in a institution, or just children that come together because they've got something in common, that's what it's about, really. It's about those children participating and having an influence on state and government policies, etc. And as most of you will know too, Article 12 very much talks about all children. So we can't just focus on the children who are the good students or the ones who have access to power. We also have to be thinking about children who have been left behind a little bit or are seldom heard. So all children on all matters. It's not just, when I started out a few years back, it was more common for children to be able to participate in these sorts of debates in education, in schools, and perhaps in family policy. But actually all policy affects children, whether it's housing, roads, transport, economics, it all affects children. And as such, children have a right to have a say. Okay. Right. Okay, why? Why is it important? So child's rights, right? I think it's a way of ensuring that policies are in the best interests of children. We know that children don't have much power in our societies. They don't vote. They're not economically powerful. Who listens to them? Who takes their interests into account? And participation is a way of ensuring that children are more visible in the political and policy-making arena, and that their interests and indeed their rights are taken into account. It's argued that it leads to better services, that if you listen to the people who are the recipients and intended beneficiaries of services, then by responding in a way that takes into account their concerns or their ideas, you're going to have more effective services. And finally, it's an opportunity for children to learn about their rights. We know that by participating in decision-making processes like this, they can learn, how to speak out, how to manage meetings. These are all transferable skills that are going to be really useful for them across the piece, both as children and when they become adults. Okay. The review of practice and policy in Europe that is the basis of this background report that Kath Larkins and myself have written was based, I mentioned, on a survey of Eurochild members. It was based on a review of European policy and practice, and through those sort of desk-based work, we were able to identify a number of positive examples in practice. I'm going to mention a few, and you'll see some more information later. We also did a quick analysis of the concluding observations from the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child of the most recent report, well, the last 10 years or so, reports of on European countries. And one of the things we found there was, again, there was examples of good practice, but the committee made a number of recommendations to over 20 countries for quite a lot of extra things that need to be put in place to realise children's participation. And they talked about the need for cultures to change and more to be done. So we can't be complacent. In terms of this review, what did we find out in terms of how children participate in public decision making? I haven't got time to go into all the ways in which children are participating, but I can tell you it's very varied and multiple ways, as it should be. Children are different in the same way that adults are different. We're not a homogeneous group. and we should actually have lots of different ways for children and young people to take part. The slide here shows you some of the different ways: consultations, monitoring. We had an example in Croatia, I think, actually, where children were have been involved in writing an alternative report for the UN committee, which is a way of monitoring and asking challenging questions about how one's government is doing in terms of implementing the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Some examples: Ireland. Ireland is the only country in Europe, I think, that has actually got a strategy for children's participation, which it passed through their parliament about 5 years ago now, 6 years ago. But this example here is an example where children were asked to give their views, children aged under 12, to give their views on the development of national after-school care standards. We were also told of an example in Spain of where Roma children and young people supported by Roma-led NGOs met with members of parliament and local councillors to build relationships and lobby on specific issues that concern them. And then the Croatia example I've mentioned, it was where children helped prepare an alternative children report on the state of children's rights in Croatia for the UN committee. Okay, moving swiftly on. We haven't got an awful lot of time, so this is really just a taster. You need to read the report and come to the conference to hear more. Lessons learnt. This slide shows you really what came up from the survey in terms of what people thought the most effective ways to increase inclusion was. So you'll see, evaluation, checking that things are accessible. You wouldn't believe the number of examples I've came across where children from low-income families are expected to get their own transport to a venue to take part in a consultation event, and yes, their bus fares or transport costs will be reimbursed, but it takes 6 weeks to do that. I mean, that isn't really feasible for children that live in low. It has to be returned or paid up front, really, for it to be as accessible as it should be. There's also there about training staff and young people to develop skills, use a variety of communication methods. We're talking about a big age range of children, from very young to older children, children with different abilities in terms of reading and writing. So lots of different communication methods. Ask children about how best to include other children, peers. Actually, I've had lots of examples, experience of that, where you can actually work with children from a particular group, Roma children, or in my context, Bangladeshi community, but actually working with other children to bring their friends and peers along. Okay, second slide about lessons learned. We asked and we looked at literature around what helps and hinders in terms of achieving influence, actually making an impact, actually getting changes. And again, there's too many things for me to go through all together at this point. More information in the report. And this is the learning. We're still learning. We're all learning. But the first one and they're often mirror images. So something that would help if that was in place. If it wasn't in place, it would be hindered. So the first one, create supportive context, is really about, and the detail is in the report, it's really about having a child rights environment where children are seen as rights holders rather than objects of concern, where adults know best. The second one, about developing a good understanding. Children need to be supported, well prepared, trained, organised, and believe in their own ability to make change. They should be supported by skilled facilitators who also need training on different policies. Not all, people can be very good at supporting children to participate, but they don't necessarily know about the policy on children in care or housing. So they might need to go and find that information from people who do know. Yes, these are to be looked at, but we need another one here. Have a strong message and communicate clearly. A lot of the time, perhaps children, young people want things to get better, but perhaps they need to work and discuss with others what exactly it is they want changed. What would make a difference. An example I had where children wanted to change the way advice on careers, what they did after school, when they left school, was delivered. They just wanted it to be more available. And actually, when we broke it down, what they wanted was it not just to be available in school by appointment. They wanted to be able to drop in at lunchtime or get careers advice at their youth club in the evening. But you've got to kind of try and break it down to be clear about what changes are desired. Okay, moving on. Okay, in terms of next steps, or what we need to be doing to make things better, this is a checklist really to be thinking about in terms of practice and policy in your situations, your realities. It's a checklist for governments and non-governmental organisations to use when establishing or reviewing policies, structures and activities to support children's participation in public decision making. I emphasise again, it's not enough for politicians and civil servants or officials to hear children. They also need to act and be seen to act, even if it's to say, I'm sorry, we can't actually do it that way or the way you want it because X, Y, and Z. It's not always about children getting their own way, but it's about acknowledging that they have a right to have a view and for that view to be considered and a response made. The final substantive slide really is about what we're recommending in terms of building blocks. So governments at all levels should take a strategic approach to supporting children's participation in decision making and establish some essential building blocks. And these 5 areas, one is around the measures to protect the right to participate. And by that, really, we mean laws, legislation to ensure that children have the right to participate in their context. And indeed, access to complaints or redress if that doesn't happen. Measures to promote the right to participate. There's no point having a right if you don't know about it. So we need to educate and inform children and parents and those who work with children about this right. Measures to create spaces for participation. You need to know where to go to be able to participate. We need forums and councils, and long-standing things, not just one-off events where children can participate in decision making. We need measures to ensure inclusion, as I said before, so that all children can participate equally, and we need measures to promote accountability so that government is held to account for realising these rights and giving children these opportunities. This is a bit of a whistle-stop tour. There is more information in the report, and indeed, if you come to the conference, and it's great to see that so many of you are, we'll be able to debate and discuss and review all this that I've spoken about today, and indeed for you to actually hear about examples of good practice. So please do read the report and come and join us in Apache in October if you can, so we can all make progress in realising the rights of all children in Europe to be heard and to help shape and design policies and practice that impact on their lives. Thank you very much. I'm just going to there and move on.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anne, for your very clear presentation. In the meantime, we started asking people in the webinar if they could share their questions already. So we have several questions here, and for those of you who haven't done yet, or for those of you who have questions to Anne or to me, please write them in the chat room, and we try to address them for the next 10 or 15 minutes. So we have a question here from Judith, wondering about continuity as children age out so quickly, much faster than our processes are. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't receive the other. I don't know, would you like to reply to that? Anne, would you?
Okay, I think that's a really good point because, of course, I used to work for Save the Children as a policy and research manager. And I was essentially, a lobbyist of government. And we know that policies and changes in law don't take place overnight. It's a long process, and we have to make use of opportunities as and when they arise. And that doesn't necessarily fit with the time that children are available and interested in participating. So I think it's a real challenge. I think in terms of forums, we need to make sure there's, not everybody is elected all at the same time and therefore finishes at the same time. We need to think about how we can continue, excuse me, continue working on an issue that, perhaps a group 2 years ago brought up, but now here's an opportunity to change whatever it is. So it's a challenge. I think we can do things to mitigate the difficulties, but no, well said.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree with you, Anne, and also what you can do if children are aging out, if they're turning 18 and older, they could become mentors of younger children that start participating. So to keep the knowledge and the experience of the older children or young people, that's something that could be done. There are some other questions coming in. Yeah, sorry, someone asked if the report could be shared, the link. Yes, we will do that. There it's coming. And there's a question about the monitoring and evaluation from Philip Watts. Just looking. It's sorry. One of the biggest challenges you face repeatedly is that organizations, the ones that you are running, regarding training and rewrite resources aimed at local government staff in England, is that there's very low confidence in the work that is being done. We're constantly being asked for evidence of good practice from similar contexts, and we know good practices out there, but monitoring and evaluation is an afterthought at best, and local authorities don't have the confidence to celebrate their successes. So how can we boost this confidence? Monitoring and evaluation is an important point.
I agree with you. And I mean, I work in the UK as well, and we did have a time, and it will be different in other countries, but we did have a time when participation was, very much the buzzword, and money was being put into it, and everything. That's long gone. I think, it's about incentives. If there was a requirement on government to do more and demonstrate what they're doing, then, I think that would be much better. And we've just got to keep on making the case for it, really. I think that it's not I think somebody said it's not something it's nice to have or an add-on extra. It's a kind of must in terms of ensuring, the future of for us all, really. I don't know if you want to add anything, Mieke.
I think I want to add there is that it's very important to share good practices that are happening with other local authorities across Europe where it does work and where children have made an impact. And we have actually several workshops at our conference that are going to show these best practices, and that's really something that you could take back to your country and share with local authorities, and show the importance and show also the impact that children's participation in local decision making have made on the policies that they have adopted. So I would like to go to the next question, which is from Sarah Men. She asked, how can we create an environment amongst the adults who are in charge, so in politics and administration, so that they really believe that participation of children is essential, and that they can bring tangible and feasible results, rather than an environment where adults just establish children's participation because it's a must or nice to have, so kind of tokenistic, I think you probably mean. Yeah, and would you like to react to that?
Yes,
question?
I'm afraid, I am a bit of an anorak. That's a British expression, but, kind of a bit of a nerd, a geek, whatever, about monitoring and evaluation, because I think we haven't done ourselves any favours by the lack of evaluation in the past as to whether or not, how things have worked out. So actually, I recommend to you the general comment on Article 12 that the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child published a few years back is very clear that one of the key indicators, I think, in the general comment, and I would agree, is about feedback, about children getting feedback. And I think if there was one indicator that I'd choose, if one was wanting to monitor routinely what's happening with children's participation, it would be whether or not the children got, adequate feedback, and, obviously the children to determine, what's adequate, sort of thing. I think there has been progress. I mean, I've been around quite a long time now. So I work in Wales. We do now have, it's mandatory for every school to have a school council. Not all of them are great, and we've got to, improve the quality. All local municipalities have youth councils. I know that happens a lot in a number of countries in Europe too, and some of them are better than others. I think we've worked hard to establish a lot of structures and forums for children to participate. We've now got to work on improving the impact. That's what I did my doctorate on, the impact of children's participation on policy making, and we don't ask enough questions about that. I think we just we sit back and say, oh, that was great, and of course the children usually often benefit from it as well, personally, in terms of their well-being and confidence, and that's great. But actually, we should be making sure that decision makers are accountable and are responding to children and actually listening. Because when you look at the examples of things where things have changed, there's less of them than there is of actually doing the participation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it makes sense. And thank you very much for that response to also stress the indicator and the need for feedback to children. I think the other thing oops, no, start getting a strange noise, sorry. The other answer I would like to give to this is also to make sure that adults, so decision makers, public administrators, or in the public government are aware about the importance of children's participation and are not scared about it, so that they know, that they can be equally talking to children as they can talk to adults and take the opinions of children seriously. And I think it's also a matter of educating them and telling them about children's rights and about children's rights to participate and to be listened to. So that's, I think also an important aspect. Okay. I think there are no more questions as far as I can see. Thank you, Florine, for participating. I see you have to go. The webinar will be recorded. I think someone is asking about that, so it can also be listened and watched later on with a link. So, okay, so if we have no more questions, you can still type up your questions, but we will move on with our with the last little part of our appetizers for workshops on the conference. And if there's still questions, there's still a little bit of space for that towards the end of the webinar. So as I already told you, we will have 13 different workshops at the conference. I would like to share two of them very briefly with you. One of them is from the Netherlands, It will be run by the Netherlands Youth Institute, and it's called Help, Suddenly I'm 18, Who Cares? It's a workshop that will be co-delivered with 2 young people. These are experienced experts. They are actually young adults between 16 and 27-year-olds in vulnerable positions. They have all previous care experience, and due to their mental or physical health issue or handicap, they've had a bad start in life. And when they turn 18, they are kicked out of the care system, and they talk about their experience, what that does to them, to policymakers. Or actually, they don't talk. They use the experience theater methodology. And by using the theater methodology, they translate their personal experience for a broader public. They try to communicate their message that they don't want to be trapped in sudden adulthood when they turn 18. And the experience theater method that they use is a very low threshold and interactive method. And this is going to be shared in the workshop that they will run at the conference. So just show you a few photos so you have some kind of idea what they're doing. So it's one methodology, and it's something you can experience when you go to the conference, and if you would choose to go to this workshop. And the other teaser I would like to show with you is a workshop which is called The Young Journalist. It's a workshop coming from Greece, from the Network for Children's Rights in Greece. I saw that we have a representative from the Young Journalist in the webinar, so great that you're here. If I'm saying something which is not correct, please let us know in the chat room. This workshop will also be co-delivered with children aged 14 till 18 years old, together with a facilitator animator. The outputs from the workshop will be a newspaper and a radio show dedicated to the conference. The children, the young people who are in this workshop all have a migrant or refugee background. And they decided themselves that they wanted to use the concept of media to empower themselves and to communicate their problems and their worries, but also their hopes and aspirations. So they do this in Greece. And they're different nationalities. In the workshop, they will use writing and interviewing techniques, and also how to montage a radio show. As an appetizer, we would like to show you 1.5 minutes of video of the work that they're doing. So you can see it now if you go to Browse too. Okay, yeah, sorry, I'm I'm back on. So I hope you enjoyed that that little appetizer of the young journalists and from the Greek initiative, and also the one hopefully from the experience theater used by the Dutch Youth Institute. I would like to open the floor again for questions, either on what you've just seen in the workshop, or maybe there are still questions that suddenly popped up about what you heard earlier during the webinar from Anne or from my side. Please write them in the chat room. We still have a few minutes for questions.
Just to say, Mieke, the link on the slide that's up now will take you to a page where the background report is. Someone was asking earlier about the link. There is also in the presentation earlier on an actual link to the report, but this link will take you to the main page, won't it? And you can find the report there.
Okay, thank you, Anne. It's really great to have that update. I'm sorry that someone not able to see the video. Yeah, you can see it if you would click on the browse, or sorry, my communications colleague is now trying to send the link. Yeah, so here's the link. Yeah, we will provide all the links later in Child Hub, and also the presentations and everything will be shared with you, will be provided to you later on. Okay, great. Okay, any other questions for the moment? Okay, looking forward to seeing you, Sarah. I'm just seeing that you have to leave. Any final questions? Or are you all coming to join us in Opatia? And there will be plenty of opportunity to have your questions answered, to share your own experiences, to share your concerns, your challenges, because I noted with some of your questions that you are facing challenges in involving children in public decision making. And yeah, it will be really great to be there with so many people with so many different backgrounds and expertise. Okay, I see that people are starting to leave. I would like to call on you, if you work in relation to children's rights or in the area of the government or any relation to child participation, please come and to our conference. Please register for the conference. I also would like to tell you, don't wait too long. As I told you at the beginning, we are having already a lot of registrations. We already closed the registrations for the children's delegations. We have about 40 places left. So please don't wait too long to register if you really would like to be there, because then we are able to secure you a place. I would like to thank all of you for participating in the webinar. It was really great to have so many people there. Even if you couldn't talk in person, we could read about you in the chat room. I also would like to thank Anne Crowley very much for her contribution and her presentation of the background report. It's really, really helpful. We will have it presented at the conference, but by the group of the Young Advisory Group, so the Children's Advisory Group to the conference. I also would like to thank the Child Protection Hub for hosting the webinar and for making sure all the technical facilities work good. And I would like to thank my colleague Prerna. You haven't been seeing her, but she is sitting next to me, supporting me with my moderator role. Yeah, I would like to thank all participants, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully meeting all of you at the conference. If you can't be there, yeah, watch out for our social media and website, because we will be posting a lot of information about the conference also during it and after it. So, but I hope to see most of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mieke and Anna. That was a very interesting presentation. Thanks a lot. Before we say goodbye, I would like to mention that the next webinar we are organizing is going to be next week on the 13th of September. And we're going to talk about the Barnahus concept and how to ensure an inclusive and child-friendly setup. I will put now in the chat box the links to the page where you can find the future webinars. Oops, this didn't work quite well. Just a second. So this is future webinars. You can also subscribe to our newsletters, and then you will learn about the all upcoming events. This is the newsletters, and if you want to get a certificate confirming the attendance of this webinar, please drop us a quick email to this address. Just a second. Here, and we will send you the certificate. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Thank you for joining us today, and have a nice afternoon.
Eugenia, thank you very much. It went very well, I think. Cheers.
Thank you
Bye.
as well. Thank you, Evgenia. Bye, Anne.
Are you happy with it, Mieke? Yeah? No, don't worry. Go on.
That's